Work-life balance is a very personal thing. There are guys who work 12 hours, 18 hours a day and think that they've got balance. There are others who work 6 hours a day and they think they've got balance. So I don't know how you define it for yourself, but for me, work-life balance requires, I guess, a couple of things to happen. One is you've got to enjoy what you're doing. You really have to. It's really, really critical. And if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's time to do something different. And that's part of the reasons why I've changed what I did over the years. Because if you're going to work as hard as we work, and I travel probably 2/3 of the time. And if you're not going to enjoy what you're doing when you travel, why the hell are you doing it? And so work-life balance starts with enjoying what you do really well. At the same time, you've got to have time for yourself and the people who matter to you. By that I mean, not just helping Aditi move into a dorm room in Harvard, which, by the way, was up 4 bloody flights of stairs with no elevator, with a room partner who had a stupid shipping trunk that was bigger than my car that had to be carried up the stairs. And I used to call that the 2 Advil evenings, right? You kind of had them, and then you had 2 Advils so you could wake up in the morning without a broken back. Yeah? But that, you've got to provide time for that. You've got to provide time for their play with their acting in it on the small part that's third tree from left, because it's important to them. And so if you're not going to be there when they need you, then you've got no balance. So I was living in Hong Kong for a little while, running Citigroup in Asia, and I used to fly back from Hong Kong for one evening to be able to spend the time that was required if one of them or Ritu were doing something that was important to us as a family. So I guess you got to enjoy what you're doing, but you've also got to take out the time for the people who matter to you. And when you're with somebody, spend the time with the person. This stupid habit of having a BlackBerry and an iPhone in your hand all the time. Honestly, you're not spending time with the people you're with. You're spending time with the instrument. And the instrument isn't your work-life balance. It's actually, in some ways, an invasion on your work-life balance. It's useful, don't get me wrong. I use the darn thing all the time, but it's an invasion if you're not careful. So finding the right space that says, when I'm with you, I'm focused on you, you matter to me, and I'm going to spend time with you, as compared to I'm doing that, but also doing this, looking at my email, doing phone calls, taking out paper, working on the weekends. You've got to figure out how to find that balance. That's what work-life balance is. The rest all kind of works out. The United States, because of the way it's constructed, actually truly, genuinely gives you a chance to succeed, no matter where you came from and what you look like. But what matters is what you do and how you do it. Both those, what and how, matter enormously. You can't just do the what and not the how. But what and how you do matters, and I believe that passionately. I would say it would be more challenging if I'd been in continental Europe in some ways. But that's not the case in the United States. So that's not as much of an issue. In fact, you do stick out a mile when you look the way I do, and you kind of walk into a company which is a Fortune 50, Fortune 100 company, and you've got, as I said, 200,000 people at Citi who work for me. You've got to get comfortable with your skin and have a little bit of confidence in yourself as compared to worrying about what the other person is thinking about you. You're going to get stared at. I walked in today, I was telling you, and I was walking into your cafeteria, and why the hell is everybody staring and looking at me? And then I discovered you put my photograph on every table, which is the most embarrassing thing in the world. Yeah. And I walk in, there's this damn tent card everywhere. And I'm like, oh God, no wonder they're staring at me. So that's not a good thing. But you can use that to your advantage if you care about talking to people. It's a great conversation opener. I've made friends who've talked to me about why I look the way I do, and they're still the best friends I've had out of a casual conversation. So not in work life. In your personal life, yeah, it can be quite an interesting thing. Look, there are times like after 9/11 when life was very complicated for me. And I lived in New York City at that time, and I'd say the best way I could describe it to you is I got shouted at and abused with verbal abuse, no physical abuse, fortunately, many times. But you find your way through it because you realize that only 0.5% of the people, or smaller than that, are doing that. The other 99.5% of the people around you are actually on your side, and they care deeply about what you're feeling at that time. And so that kind of, if you have that strength, you can get through a lot of stuff. I still get randomly pulled out for checking at TSA. I'm the ultimate random check guy. But, what are you going to do? You can't fight that. You got to just take it with you. So personally, a lot of things come around you. My boss at Citi at that time was his boss was Sandy Weil. And he called me the second day after these issues erupted in New York City and said to me, listen, you're not going to fly commercially for the next few months. You can have the company plane, which I was not entitled to at that time, to go wherever you've got to go. I'm not taking a chance with you getting caught up in security at the airports. You're not going to do that. Rule 1. Rule 2, you need a car to bring you back and forth from home. I used to walk in Manhattan to work. You can have my car. And I used to still walk to work because dealing with it is more important than hiding from it. And yes, I got the looks and I got the odd comment, but I walked to work and I walked back. And once in a while, my boss used to come to my house and walk with me to work. That's pretty cool. That's leadership. And it matters. So you can deal with it. It's more of a challenge in that personal side than at the work front. The work front is never a problem. We're doing 2 or 3 things. One is we created a group inside the company called Mastercard Labs, which is headquartered in Dublin, has locations in the US and in Singapore and Brazil now, in an effort to get innovation from around the world to flow into what we are doing. And these guys are, they're actually kept safe from the lunatics who run the asylum inside of Mastercard, right? So they have a budget that I give them, which only I can change. My CFO is not allowed to question it. Nobody in the company can change it. It's my budget. I give it to them. They work with that. They don't have to give me any spreadsheet for any project because you guys have all worked earlier. You can produce a spreadsheet. It has 24 sub-spreadsheets. You change the number on the 23rd one in row 7, column 14, and your ROE on the first page becomes 35% instead of 3.5%. I'll never find it. I won't know which number you've changed. It's a waste of my time. So I told them, here's the money. You choose the projects. I need commercially viable 2 products after 2 years. If I don't, I'll fire the whole lot of you and start again. It works. I now have 4 products in incubation. And I was telling the dean, 3 of them, by the way, are run by women. So much for women cannot succeed in technology. That's another bunk that, like cash, is free, that should be dispensed with. And 3 of them are run by women out of the 4. And they do a great job, by the way. They're kicking ass on what they're doing in the company. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's part of innovation. But the other part of it is it's got to, seep into your bloodstream. It's got to be, you've got to have an osmosis layer on this. And so we're putting money into venture capital firms that show us many more new technology pieces than we ever saw. We have people working inside the company on being told that if you try something new and it doesn't work, that's fine. You can take a risk and you can lose the money and move on. And it's the culture you build. It's not just creating labs and giving them money. It's the culture around it that we're trying to build.